Hey, everybody. This is Questions You Never Thought You Could Ask in Church. Today's program is pre-recorded, so we won't get to your questions live, but we invite you to text them in anytime. You can text the questions in you have about God, Christianity, the Bible, comparative religions, different belief systems, following Jesus in the world today, spirituality, how it all intersects, the big questions, the little questions, the crazy questions, the far-out questions, the completely hypothetical questions, the absolute practical questions, the theologically dense questions, and the ones that seem more surface. We welcome them here, 815-314-0363. Again, that's 815-314-0363. Even though we're not taking them live in the studio today, we have got such an inbox of questions stacked up because you guys have been texting them in. And I got to tell you, Steve, Andrew, Kent, incredible questions that we have lined up in the gate here today. I mean, I swear, I think we got like 28 episodes ahead of us of content to get through, even if we were doing like speed runs. Boom. Yeah. We're just going to hit them, right?
We'll be doing this in eternity.
We will be doing this in eternity. We're going to have this table set up in heaven, aren't we? You know,
I think so. It'll be made of gold. The table.
You know, yeah.
Because it's in heaven. I don't know.
See, I'm with you, Andrew. I know where you're going.
Gold,
a white gold. Yeah, white gold. Can we go white gold? Platinum gold, yeah.
Is it still my studio?
Yes.
That sounds interesting to me.
Yes.
You know, we really need to look up like every single Bible passage with 21:6 and just kind of see what they say.
I'll do that.
And we're not going to let you know which one that this station is in reference to. And we're going to have maybe a contest here of going, you know, is it Jeremiah 21:6? Is it Isaiah 21:6?
Psalm 21 verse
Psalm?
6.
Well, I'm going to look up Psalm 21:6 right now.
That's the one about the fawns. And
all bald people go to hell. What?
All right, you ready for Psalm 21:6?
Yes.
Surely you have granted him unending blessings and made him glad with the joy of your presence. Yeah, that's not a bad one there, Ken.
That's what we do.
You know,
for
we're going to roll.
Right here.
We're going to
We
roll.
start off every show with a 21:6 verse.
I think we should.
That's it.
Here's
shtick.
Isaiah 21:6. This is what the Lord says to me. Go, post a lookout and have him report back what he sees. Again, you know, you could work with that.
He's seen some weird things.
He has. Yeah.
Is that why there's a telescope by the window there?
That's
so you
right.
can...
That's right.
This one I like better. Ezekiel 21:6. Therefore, groan, son of man, groan before them with broken heart and bitter grief. That defines the station right there, doesn't it?
There's been plenty of that too.
Some might say that we're just groaning on here. That's it.
That's right.
Oh, well.
So it's Hat Day today.
It's Hat Day. Yeah.
Yeah.
We proclaimed. We made it our own.
Two of us.
What's today? What is today in whatever?
Yeah,
in
it's the
future?
13th.
July 13th
It's
is when
July
we're
13th.
broadcasting. Yeah.
It's Hat.
Premiering.
It's Hat Day.
Yeah. And with that hat, we've learned that Steve's clarity of thought and depth of insight
My
is
thinking
ratcheted
cap.
up like exponentially.
I'm brilliant now. So look
Steve,
out.
you were always brilliant.
Brilliant.
It's just like, you know, we got rid of the chi block here, you know. I mean, it's you're flowing, baby. You know.
That hat fits
This
you well.
reminds
too.
me of like if I look into that screen right there, I look like Tony Hawk,
You do a little. Yeah,
and I
it's
got
nice.
my Vans on.
Are you looking
Right.
deep into your own?
See that?
eyes?
Look at that. Looks like a skater right there.
Oh, big time.
Could be.
Big time.
Eternals is a skateboard brand, right? Yeah.
Yes.
And Vans, feel free to. Yeah, we're always looking for Sponsors.
always, yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Skate hard.
Of course, with an influencer like yourself, that's
That's what I do.
it's big time.
I feel kind of on the outs because I mean, you're doing the Billabong shirt here again, you know, and
Well, you're
You know.
representing.
I thought we
Well,
weren't
yeah, but
gonna
this
talk about
isn't
the
skater
shipments.
vibe, you know. I mean,
No, it's not. Well, that's surf.
yeah,
It's like,
you know, surf skaters. I mean, come on,
It's the
that's
same thing.
same tribe.
okay, now
Same tribe.
Here's
Don't
the
shower.
question:
It's the same thing.
TNC Surf. Anybody remember that game?
No,
Nintendo
original or 64?
original.
Ah, I didn't have that.
Oh, it was great.
All right.
Skating and surfing,
Was it great?
and it was.
Your little
I spent a
six-pick.
lot.
I mean, he's wearing a
Ours.
hat to this day. I mean, it
There
had to
you
have some
go.
kind of impact, yeah.
Spent a lot of time with that game. Could never get through the park safely.
Never made it. You never made it.
I always got attacked by some dogs or something. And the sharks always got me when I was surfing. So, anywho,
Well, you know, a couple of weeks ago, we did a 2-week round at Fellowship of Faith, where we're all on staff up in McHenry, Illinois. Visit us at fellowshipoffaith.org. But we did a 2-week round of taking questions live on Sunday morning. It's actually kind of one of my favorite things to do of the year. I just kind of love seeing what comes up in the moment and having to kind of like respond like right there on the fly. But I mean, we had such a volume of questions come in, and you know, and even since then, just the stream that continues to pour in. So we got a deep 15-page inbox here today. Hopefully we can get to your question today. We know we won't get to them all, but we will in time, right? All right. Where are you taking us,
Exactly.
Andrew?
I don't know. I'm trying to take a shot in the dark here, and we'll see. How wrong is it for me to be mad at Jesus?
You know what? Thank you.
Great question.
Great question. And a lot of people, really are, and are really terrified about the prospect. Let me put it this way. Mad at Jesus or not, justified or not, I'm not even going to go there, all right? I'm just going to tell you this. He's big enough to handle it. God is big enough to handle it, and he would rather you let him know that you're mad and have that conversation with him than walk around passive aggressively towards him, cold shouldering him, hard hearting him, rejecting him, resisting him, and ignoring him otherwise, which I think is what a lot of people do. It's very normal to get mad at God, and just thanks be to God that he doesn't return the anger in kind, and meets us in that place of anger wherever it is. So you know what? Go ahead and just have that conversation and have the argument you need to have. And I think God's gonna to do some work there. You know what movie scene I actually love with this? Remember Forrest Gump?
Mm-hmm.
Remember when Captain Dan, after 10 years of just being angry at God, about losing his legs in Vietnam. He's up on the boat and he's having the challenge. I mean, I love how they did that scene. I mean, it held to this day. It's like 30 years old now. Do you believe that?
Yeah, that's crazy.
But 28 years old. But it really held, and it's okay.
So are you guys speaking of being mad, are you passive aggressive mad people? Or are you just like
With God or in general?
in general? Like are you just that, or are you like, I'm mad and I'm going to tell you about it? Or how do you handle it?
I think I generally try to not acknowledge my emotions. So, which is not the healthy way to
Denial.
go about it. Yeah. Exactly. So it's not really passive aggressive or letting it out.
Good.
Kent, where are you at?
Who are we talking with about this?
Well, let's just say you and your wife.
No, I wear my emotions on my arms. Sometimes I have sleeves, sometimes I don't. But truth is, she can read me like a book after 30 years. So there's no sense in being passive aggressive. It's just like, stop being an idiot. I'll be upset. Here's why I'm upset.
Okay.
But
Okay.
it probably early on, I was passive aggressive.
Yeah.
Isn't everyone like you tiptoe around a little bit?
Not me.
No.
Not me.
Yeah.
I'm an idiot. I go right into it like a bull. Let's go.
For better or worse, here
That's
it
right.
is.
That's it.
Yeah, it totally depends who we're talking about here. The closer I am to someone and the freer I feel to be myself around someone, the more overt I am with my anger. It doesn't really sound like a good deal for them. But no, I'm not passive aggressive, but with a lot of people, there's a certain professional air that you have to put on where maybe like you, Andrew, it's not like denying that it's there, but it's just like, I hate to say stuff it
out in
down,
this moment, yeah.
but it's just like control it, let it go, deal with it, take it out on the treadmill, the trail, or the punching bag later on,
You go put the collar on and just get mad.
Yeah, put the collar on and get mad.
Really drive it home.
That's it.
You know who I am?
He's got a clerical shirt with the sleeves off, the collar on, gets on his Harley and goes.
That's funny.
The pastor of disaster.
Yeah.
Where you at, Steve?
Oh boy, that depends on what it is. Like what I'm upset about. If
Yeah.
it's trivial, sometimes it's fun to be passive aggressive just to see if they pick up on it. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. And then I'll probably come out and be like, can you not pick up on my passive aggressiveness? And then like one of my big things is the dishwasher.
Okay.
Right. So if the dishes are
This is
done,
most likely with family.
sure.
But,
And then there's
Just
dishes.
visiting,
And what's-
coming over.
and
you
what's
know,
her name?
Invite him
I
over.
said, no, just make sure my
And then
dishwasher's
there's-
empty at home.
Oh, that one slipped by, Kent.
The dishes are clean in the dishwasher. They're just ready to be unloaded. But then there's dishes in the sink. And someone comes and they put dishes in the sink, but I happen to notice their glance. And I'm like, wait a second here. So then I'll open the dishwasher and I'll just start crashing these things around, putting them away. So that's my passive aggressive.
All right.
Because it's fun. And then someone will say, geez, why are you so angry putting those dishes away? Well, because someone came by and looked at it and didn't do it. So
Now, I fall into this. I'm curious if you guys had the same thing with like your kids, but like my kids, I think often misread my anger.
yes.
And what I mean is they know when I'm angry,
Uh-huh.
but I'm flash in the pan about trivial things.
Yeah.
like, oh, come on, and I'll just kind of like have a little rant or something. But I'm really not that angry. It's
Right,
all surface
right,
level.
yeah.
The stuff that really gets me angry is often kind of the still deep water that
Yep.
they don't realize and don't know that it's brewing or
Yep.
building
Yep.
or
And maybe
compiling
within that
or
is a little like childhood trauma in there.
Oh, yeah, you
fueling the
bet, you
fire.
bet. Yeah.
Yes. And my kids will, all three of my daughters, like I don't yell.
Okay.
Like I'm just not a yeller, old yeller. But they'll always say, geez, quit yelling at me. I'm like, well, I'm not yelling. I'm talking to you. Yeah, but you're yelling. I'm not yelling. This is my voice right here. It hasn't changed at all. The volume hasn't even gone up.
But it's in all caps somehow. As it
Yeah,
comes out of your
yeah,
mouth.
right. Someone is bold italicized.
I remember my McKenna or Maya, I don't remember. They're like, well, yell once then. And Barbie's like, oh, you don't want to hear that. Totally on my side on this.
Yeah.
And she's just trying to scare him a little bit. And so to this day, they're just like, oh, don't get him too mad so that he yells because it'll be loud.
If
I think I yell with my words, not my volume. So my
like
words
choice of
will get-
vocabulary.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can tell when I'm angry because there's a lot more F words and other cuss words.
See, I thought it was going to go all like 5-syllable plus words on you. You get like erudite,
yeah,
It
I
just-
become a thesaurus.
yeah.
F words like fellowship of faith.
Yeah.
Fellowship of faith.
Fellowship of
If I don't lead with a joke, that my family knows I'm pretty PM.
So humor flies out the window.
Yeah, because I deal with I think everybody should be happy and all the
Mhm.
time. That's just who I am, and I try to make sure everybody laughs and has a good time. So in the worst moments, I will always, whatever it is, I'll always lead with a joke because that's just how I deal with it,
Mhm.
right? So my kids, if I don't lead with a punchline, my kids are like,
Look out.
"Oh crap!"
So,
Dad,
so then,
yeah,
so how do you think God's going to deal with this? Like,
same way we deal with it.
yeah, but I mean, like, so would he be passive aggressive every once in a while, or would he just lead in with a joke like, you're an idiot?
Would the 40 years wandering in the desert be considered passive aggressive? I don't know. I'm just gonna wait till you guys figure this out.
It would be passive aggressive if he didn't tell them why they were wandering 40
That's
years in the
true.
wilderness,
Not yet. Oh, wait,
It's out
a
there.
little longer.
You know what? One more lap. One more.
But
lap.
it's kind of a fine line though, isn't it, between like patience and passive aggressiveness? And I see that as a fault on my own side because I'll try to be patient, but the reality is I'm so flawed that the anger doesn't dissipate and it stews, and I still don't deal with it properly, even though being patient is still the right thing to do.
Yep.
And
And people, like, your emotion is seen.
Yeah.
So they see it.
yeah.
It's just a matter of, do you think?
Are you-
But passive aggressiveness, I mean, just to be clear though, I think is different than a lot of this stuff, because passive aggressiveness is trying to find underhanded ways to take it out on the person. And I think that's different than just trying to deal with your own anger.
Yeah,
And
True.
I think it's sinful too. It's very sinful.
passive aggressiveness is
Just-
for the passive aggressives out there, just let us know what you think. 815-314-0363. Text it in,
You
and
can use all
don't-
caps if you
you
want.
can use all caps, you can bold, you can underline, and Steve is happy to
Explicits.
take them all
Yeah.
and just
Put in
respond.
some,
Yeah.
put in some F words if you want.
That
Friendship.
is true. I don't think in this
Fellowship.
entire string of questions we got from the last 2 days, no one cursed in there. They all
And-
seem to be pretty even.
And are there any about cursing?
There's no aggression. There's no.
Oh man,
People are just curious.
it's lame.
We have a curious
on.
congregation.
Let's get up.
Curious world. I mean, let's
That's true. Yeah.
come
it
from a lot of
is.
places. Okay, what else do we have here? What
Yeah.
what
Well,
other
one thing I
territory?
thought of while you were talking about, like, as people get closer to you, you feel more comfortable showing your emotions or showing anger. I was wondering, how is that from a pastor's perspective? Because I'd imagine just relating to people can be difficult if they're like members of your congregation, or I don't know. It's that we seem to have
Yeah.
this aura of like, oh, well, you're a pastor, so you're closer to God, or you understand it more, so you don't deal with as much emotions or questions or any of those things. Like, I don't know. Let's
Ironically,
get the inside scoop.
it's actually been the opposite problem for me. And that, and Tina would tell you the same thing. She never thinks about herself like a pastor's wife. She's just Tina. I'm just Dave, right? I mean, I'm not ignorant of my job. I'm not naive to the way people view it, but I'm naive to the way that people view me. And so much of my ministry, especially when I was younger, it was just, I just thought of people as friends. And it would often come out in roundabout ways that, oh no, you do view me in a different way. You do view me differently. And that would always kind of throw me off balance a little bit, because then I would kind of like realize, oh no, you don't actually want me to be myself around you. You don't want me to be a fully human being. And I'm not talking license for sin. I'm not talking about owning your crap. I'm not talking about any of that kind of stuff. That far more people, and I thought we were kind of beyond this, wanted the cookie cutter version, and realizing that's where they were at. And then you kind of go, well, I'm not gonna be fake, but okay, I guess there is a distance in the relationship here, and it's going to exist at a kind of a professional level with certain levels of professional decorum, which I'm not saying are bad either, by the way. So sometimes I think in our quest to be real, we use that as a license for like, really, you can practice some discretion in your life and learn etiquette. So it's often been something that I've had to kind of backtrack on rather than step into more, if you will.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, because I think most people's jobs, you have your coworkers and your work world. And
Yeah.
that's kind of, it's there. But then you have your outside of work world, and like,
and in this kind of
and
profession,
you
it's
don't really have that.
enmeshed. Yeah. And I've always kind of defaulted into, I think, trusting too much people. And I don't mean like getting conned or something like that, though maybe even on those lines too. And then after the fact, learning, not because I got hurt, but just because, oh, you're not allowing me in that place, to then kind of have to insulate off a little bit more.
Yeah.
Boundaries.
Yeah.
Depends on the person too. Like, what has your history been so far since I've known you? What information have you divulged to me that, if that's a pattern, then what are you going to take about me and divulge to someone else? And so it's really just reading the room sometimes. Like, okay, you know what? Instead of having this extra beer here where, it might not go well, I'm probably going to say, don't do that. And it's also great having a wife that I do, because she sees things that I don't sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Level of perception. Yeah.
So, yep. She'll say, all right, it's time to go. Okay, honey.
A lot of church workers, I'm curious your guys' take on this. We'll say it. It's certainly been my experience, but I fear. I don't like that word. I expect far more judgment from people in the church than outside the church, and I find far more problems of these kinds with people that profess to be Christian than people who don't. That isn't exclusive. That's a blanket statement that doesn't certainly apply to all people, but just as my general trend. Now, part of that could be it's simply where I spend most of the time and where the deeper relationships happen. You talk about people who live, without church culture. It's certainly out there, deeper than you can imagine as well, in workplaces and things. So, I don't want to boo-hoo this.
No,
or demonize the church, but
I think you're right. But I also expect that as well. And the reason that I would expect that is because it's their church too, right? So it's not just our church. It's not my church. It's our church. It's our whole families. And so they've got skin in the game, and they want, certain things, or they see certain things, and we all have passions about it. And so it's like, I get it.
And if you learn this too, it's like, as Christians, we're called to love each other, but a lot of people just don't like.
Right.
And that's okay. And not liking you should never translate into not loving you and treating you in love and treating you with the full respect and dignity and openness and kindness and patience and everything God calls. But just, we're not, firing on the same cylinders necessarily.
And I also think too, like the intent. Like if your intent is just to be a jerk to me because you don't agree with what's happening.
Yeah.
Well, that's one thing. If your intent is to, hey, you know what? I'm not really a big fan of this, but help me try and understand why it is that you're going this path. I'll have so much more respect for that than I will someone who's just gossipy and going behind the scenes and talking smack about certain things. It's like, look, if you can't just come to me and tell me this stuff.
And isn't that the hardest thing when you come face to face with what I can only call spiritual immaturity? And you realize that just because someone has gone to a church for 40 years or has a pedigree of Christian faith as long as they can remember, it doesn't make them a mature or spiritually mature human being. And sometimes I think we just assume because of the way they dress, the way they purport, hold themselves, the way they're involved, things like that. And it's true for all people that way, but it still catches you by surprise.
And patience too. Like, there's certain things where, you go into an environment and instead of just automatically just throwing up what your thoughts are and vomiting those thoughts out, like, why don't you just sit back and see what unfolds here and then make a determination as to how you really feel about it, versus just, I'm going in there, I don't like this, and this is not the way it used to be, or this, I don't like that, or blah, blah, blah. It's like that maturity, just to, all right, step back. You may find that things look very differently in a month, for instance. So just hold on.
Yeah.
Well, and I found that I tend to stereotype or take thoughts I have about like the global church, if you will, and then apply them to specific members of my church.
Yeah.
And be like, well, you are representing this issue that I have. So it's like, I don't know. It's a different.
Like, what's an example?
I don't know that I have an example specifically.
But generally, kind of
I think
here.
like just like frustrations with what I view as like the church at large and why don't we do this well? Whatever.
Yeah, and you
you're
pinpoint
like,
your lightning
well,
rod.
You're the example of that.
Even
it's
though
like
nothing to do with it, but it's just,
yeah. So it's easy to then have a negative view of like my church, of my congregation because of that.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, well, I'm in a church work position where I could impact
that
the church at large, but I'm like, but all you people are causing problems. And it's like,
okay,
but I'm a part of that too. Like I'm causing problems too.
We had a question come in. It's kind of interesting on this line. And it's, how do we manage anger caused by factors that don't feel biblical? I love it. Kind of realizing and admitting and responding to what's going on. And, I'm interested in this, the way it's put, but I don't feel biblical because I think I understand the meaning here. But I want to challenge maybe the assumption that there's good anger and bad anger. I'm not sure that the Bible talks about good anger and bad anger the way that I think a lot of us will assume or describe. There's just anger. And Jesus says anger is dangerous. Or I think you can at least codify his teaching on anger as to say that it's dangerous. It's very popular today to talk about like a righteous anger or a righteous indignation.
It's for the underdog.
We should be outraged. Since when in the history of the universe has like outrage been viewed as a virtue? I mean, outrage literally by definition is being uncontrollable in your anger. When has that ever been viewed as good in any culture, anytime? But we have so twisted, I think, the concept of anger because we feel it and we want to justify it, that so much of what's done in the name of righteous anger today is little more than revenge, or spite or hate or whatever it might be. Jesus views all anger as dangerous. And so the way that we manage anger and the way that Jesus, I should say, in the New Testament encourages us to manage anger is a few-fold. To deal with it quickly. I like how Paul will put this. Don't let the sun go down on your anger. Deal with it the same day. Jesus will say it this way. If you're offering your gift at the altar and you remember that your brother has something against you, or that you have rather something against your brother, is what he says. Oh, no, I'm angry. No, go leave your altar gift at the altar. Just get out of there. Go make it right with your brother first. Then come back and offer your gift. Can you imagine if Christians practiced that one verse? If before they would come to church, they would deal with the anger that they have, and they didn't use it as an excuse to not ever go to church again, but to go, I have to deal with this by Sunday. Be a better world by far.
And
right?
that is even more allowing than in the Bible. It says, don't go to sleep on your anger. And we're saying like, you've got a whole
we're even getting a week.
We got a whole week to do.
Jesus says day, but hey, we're going to give you a week, right? Because that's what we do, right? But no, can you imagine that? So deal with it quickly.
Well,
confront it, approach it, and do it Jesus way, not to, land blast someone, not to rub their nose, but to be honest and just say, I was hurt by this. I'm angry about this. Or even, I don't know if I'm reading this wrong, but this is what I'm perceiving. And I'm really getting upset about this. And I just want to kind of clear the air with you. Quick to forgive. I also love that love cult covers over a multitude of sins, and we don't have to kind of be nitpicking everything. We got to check some of our own kind of sensitivities on that as well, but just some things. Yeah, Steve, I think I cut you off there.
No, I just think, when's the last time that you were outraged or super angry and you were thinking real clearly?
Yeah.
In that moment?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're not.
Yeah. Oh, it feels clear in the moment, but
Because what is it? Anger is like blinders. I don't know if that's a phrase. No, it is.
No, it is. Way to coin that one. You know, we're going to see that on t-shirts,
you
man.
You do get that tunnel vision where you're
you
like,
do.
Whatever my perception is of what this person said or how they said it or what happened in society or the world, it's like that how I perceive it must be the only viewpoint, and that is what happened, and this was their intention, and I'm going to lean into that and just rage. It's
Yeah.
Like, maybe like take a step back, and that's difficult to do. Thank God for therapies to teach us those things.
Some of that also comes with age too.
Mhm.
You know, it's just as far as life experience and what you've been through and what worked and what really didn't work.
Being angry is exhausting.
It is tiring. It's taxing.
Laziness is a solution to anger, huh?
It is.
Laziness and apathy.
Go-
Better than anger.
Go have a good meal.
Though I find it doesn't make it go away though. Like I got to personally, I've got to process it out a lot of times and often physically. I like working out. And I don't see how people don't, only from the mental health aspect, because for me, it's such a channel of the pent up frustration, stress, anger, you know, processing scenarios over and over again, just run it out or punch it out on a bag or, you know, push up it out or lift it out or, you know, whatever it happens to be.
I can't say I'm there.
Well, it takes your mind off of the anger. If you're struggling to breathe, you're less focused on being angry about
it does have it does have that effect.
That it's a coping mechanism. I have no I'm not doubting that at all. I just hate working out. Hate it. Now give me a basketball and 4 or 5 other guys and let's go play some 2-on-2.
Play it out,
you know?
yeah.
But does that lead to more anger sometimes?
No.
Never?
Mm-hmm.
Never. Interesting.
Because whatever kind of flash in the pan anger usually happens in the game, it's instantaneous. It just moves on.
True.
There's been maybe like 2 or 3 exceptions in my life where it's not been the case because who you're playing is just a real, I'll just leave it at that. You know, but and they're taking it deeper. But yeah, I thought that one was
So what about is this where God's anger, I don't know if it's anger or something, like God's heart burns against these people or against this situation? Is that
you want to know the
biblical phrase?
You know, the actual literal Old Testament metaphor for God's anger is that his nose blasts fire or his nostrils flame or flare. And, you know, it always gets translated out. But I love how pictorial and concrete the imagery is of like original language kind of stuff. Because you could just see it like the nose flaring, and whether you see it like kind of like a dragon snorting fire or just like someone who's angry and huffing and puffing and their nose is just kind of flaring. You know, it's I love that image.
Well, and that's not action or reaction based, which is interesting. It's not like they're not using the action God takes with his anger to describe his anger. They're just taking the characteristic of it.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, right.
All right, we're at the top of the hour. Kent, you want to give us the
Hey, you bet. You're listening to 21.6 The Net. This is Questions You Never Thought You Could Ask in Church, previously recorded.
Oh.
Just threw that one in.
Yes.
Thank you, Kent.
Of course, you can check us out every Wednesday right here at 12:30 p.m. Central. And if you have questions, feel free to text them to 815-314-0363, not just during the show, 24 hours, 7 days a week. And we will get to them. Of course, you can always throw them out in the comment section, even if you're catching this right now, which is pre-recorded. You can put them in there. We'll grab them off of social media and address them hopefully on our next live session. And if you're not doing anything on Sunday mornings at 10 a.m., tune in right here, 21.6 The Net. Go to fellowshipoffaith.org. Check out their Facebook. Check out their YouTube. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And you can worship with them right online if you don't feel like showing up. Or if you live on the other side of the world, you can tune in and worship the same time, 10 a.m. on Sundays right here. Back to you guys.
Keep forgetting that we're pre-recording this because I'm like, Where is everybody on the comments?
Yeah, right.
Maybe the hat's too
Sitting in
tight.
seclusion.
Show sucks.
I know. I keep saying
Nobody's
that too. I'm like,
chiming in.
no one's commenting.
I know. I
at
keep,
all.
yeah, stealing the
even a
glance
hi?
over
So
there.
if you're watching this
Yeah.
live and you're wondering why we're not reacting to
Yeah,
your
yeah,
comments,
right.
Tina says, "Hey guys."
You're like, every show.
most likely. Well, do we want to?
Andrew is on, right? We give a
Explain
shout out to
why
Andrew.
we're-
He
Andrew,
usually,
hey,
he
you're-
usually
you're-
shows up.
yeah.
Yeah, we're pre-recording the show. So and Andrew and I and about 20 other people from our church are going to the National Youth Gathering, which is the convergence of about 16 to 20,000 high school students in Houston, Texas in July, for about 4 days of concerts and breakout sessions and speakers and worship and just kind of all that, the fun, joy, trauma, and sorrow that doing life together,
You should
equates.
write the ads for it.
I should write the ads.
Come
So,
down for a time of trauma and sorrow.
For about 12 years, I worked on the crisis intervention for the National Youth Gathering, and that was kind of basically the job. Was just going around to trauma and sorrow. But it was amazing that for that volume of people converging on a place like that, how little we were actually on call. Like we were trying to create work, I think, more than like responding to actual need, which is a good thing.
Yeah, I wonder
know?
how different that's going to be this year.
Yeah.
Because of COVID, because of the isolation, because that was 3 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
meaning the last gathering.
Mm-hmm.
Kids are different right now.
Oh,
That was 2019 before
Yep.
a lot of stuff
Yep.
happened.
So you may be overwhelmed. Is that what you're doing? Are you doing that?
No,
this year?
no, I'm going straight
Just going,
chaperone this
okay.
year. I'm just going with our own congregational group.
Mhm.
Andrew's going the same way with that. There's like 4 or 5, I think, of us as adult chaperones and about 20, 22 students, I want to say. And yeah.
And Andrew let the Spirit move. He waited till the last moment to decide whether or not he was going to go.
Well, I got asked because another chaperone
Yeah.
couldn't go.
Yeah, I know.
So then I got filled in.
Oh, I'm glad you're going.
Nope,
Yeah.
it's the
Yeah,
Holy
I'm
Spirit.
excited.
It's going to be a good trip.
It wasn't the other person.
It was the Holy Spirit.
You
for
were
sure.
waiting. You were praying feverishly.
Show me a sign.
I was, yeah. So let's jump into another question here. I like this one specific to Fellowship of Faith specifically, but would FOF become a Lutheran school down the road?
Someone texted this in, I think, at our live broadcast, within our own congregation. So we're at a church in McHenry, Illinois, which is about an hour northwest of Chicago, give or take, maybe 10, 12 miles off the Wisconsin border. And, to the question, would we ever consider, opening the school someday? Within the Lutheran tradition, there is actually a pretty, a strong, tradition, I guess you could say, of education. They've always valued it highly, and not just at like seminary level and graduate level, but all the way down to kindergarten. The idea that it's just so important to instill. The truth of the faith is revealed in the universe through the God who gives it into us from the time that we're young, and that taps way back into even the ancient Judaic tradition, if you will. Needless to say, I don't think so. And there's a few reasons behind that. One is there are a lot of really good Christian schools in our close vicinity. And I think one of the mistakes that the Christian church makes is we're all trying to do kind of like duplicate each other independently. Like we're all kind of just doing our own thing, almost like we're in competition with each other, rather than if a church down the road is doing something great, build into that and let them build into you where you're thriving. We got to get out of this kind of like isolated, siloed mentality that I see so many congregations in. Number two, it's exorbitant in cost to run a private or parochial school in this day and age, and especially in an area where there are good schools and parents don't want to spend $11,000 a year in tuition for 5th grade education. Just the feasibility of not only launching it, but being able to run it successfully and competitively is, I think, getting harder and harder in this world. And, look, someone comes by with a $100 million, endowment saying this is a dream of mine. Hey, rock on, let's figure it out. But, the day and age is gone, I think, of just having a successful Lutheran school because it's, quote, Lutheran, or because people are naturally going to want to come because they assume that there's some kind of Christian environment or education there. I see more Lutheran schools closing their doors than opening, daily. They just don't manage a resource the way they need to for the cultural climate we're in. So again, it's not a never by all means. I love Lutheran education, but and Christian education for that matter. It's just some of the practicalities stand
Yeah.
behind it.
I would say there's two things to that. One, if there was school choice, and so the money would follow the student.
Yeah,
I
that would
think
change the
that
game.
would change
That
the
would
game
change
a
the
lot.
game.
So if you're interested in that, talk to your
Text your senator at
That's right.
815.
That's right. Because there is a lot of controversy right now as far as academia and public schools and what's being taught and whatnot. So I know just for me, like my daughter went to, a Christian school from, kindergarten to 8th grade. And when we moved here, just change for her. Not to say that I have anything wrong with public school system, but the one that she is going to right now, I kind of do, so but what other option do we have right now besides a public school, and other than traveling, miles away to go to,
which is difficult in its own
it's
right,
hard to do.
Yeah.
So anyway, so there's that. But you mentioned something earlier though, that was the schools and them trying to be independent of one another and maybe not working together, or trying to create something that was differing from the other school to set themselves apart or whatever. Don't we think that's the same with the churches around here?
Oh, absolutely. And I think it's the same in most churches and most places.
Yeah.
Well, and I think even outside of that, like, do we need 15 Starbucks in a city? I don't know.
Maybe not. Yeah.
I don't know.
But their profit margin votes,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Not to be naive of how that impacts local churches as well, but it is kind of different. I'm actually all about lots of small churches. I love big church, but small church or micro church is an untapped, overlooked powerhouse resource that has the incredible capacity to do so much good in this world. But I think that the problem, so I'm all about populating dozens and dozens and dozens of small churches in a community. But Christ never called us to be working in isolation from each other. And it doesn't mean we can't have our own flavor, our own way, and our own kind of MO of doing things. But just the absolute apathy that I think often exists, or even phobia that's there about any kind of sense of collaboration. I think it breaks God's heart.
Yeah, I go both ways on that. Like, I love the big church. I love seeing so many people gathered in his name, kind of similar to the National Youth Gathering, where it's like, oh, wow, you get to see all of these believers joining together. And so to me, like, I would rather see let's just say this area. Let's say we were to build a facility that was 3,000 people. Okay. That's all of almost all of the Lutheran churches around here combined. We're not very populated. Think about the resources that it would all those resources combined would have a great impact. But at the same time too, like, you can still have small church in a big church. It's just you're collectively getting together for corporate worship, so any church you can have your pockets, whether it's a 200 person church or a 3,000 person church. 200 people, you're not going to be friends with everybody. There's just no way that you're going to know that. So it's like those importance of small groups or house gatherings, or like the table dinners, or all these things that are fellowship events or sports or whatever. It's like, I think those can all be part of the church, whether or not it's a big church or a small church. So anyway, so let's do that. Let's combine all the LCMS churches in the Northern Illinois district under one roof.
That sounds like nightmare.
For a banger.
Maybe
it would be a banger.
Once every 3 years.
Once every 3 years. Yeah, 3 days. Once every 3 years, right?
Well, I think what was something about schools. Oh, with I think the like private or Christian schooling is also going just down in its popularity in society, because society is not their perceptions of what churches are and what Christians teach isn't what they want. They don't want their kids in that environment. Whereas I think it used to be like, oh, this is a safer place. This is where they're going to learn to be nice to people. They're not going to teach whatever. And now the societal view at large of church is flipped. It's opposite of that. Those are the bigoted people. Those are the people that are lying to you. Those are the people that are this. And it's like, that happened pretty quick. That switch happened.
It'd be
pretty
interesting to
quickly.
see. I'm sure there's studies done on this, but how the perception of not church, but religious school plays out that way, especially at the younger age, like elementary school, maybe middle school, things like that. Because preschools have no problem populating.
Absolutely.
Ever. No. I mean, so my apologies to the one that's struggling out there. But generally speaking, you do see that there still seems to be this young parent idea of like, oh, get them in this nurturing environment. Or at least a disconcern for whatever's being taught theologically. I like it because they do a good program.
Yeah.
I'm convinced it's tuition money.
Mhm.
You hit kindergarten and boom, $7,000, please.
Yep.
And that's cheap.
Yeah.
On top of property taxes.
Yeah. All right. What else do we have?
There will inevitably be many people who live their whole lives without being introduced to Christianity due to location, family upbringing, etc. How can God expect them to come to Christ?
Yeah. This is one of the reasons why the New Testament puts such an emphasis and impetus on go and tell. And that is the biblical answer to it. We can hypothesize about other ways that God might reach people or get to people. But the reality is the entire Christian movement from its beginning is evangelistic. It is good news that needs to be shared, because if you love people or care about people and there's something that can help people or bring hope to people, an encouragement to people, you share that with them. And so when you read the storyline in the book of Acts or the New Testament trajectory, or even Jesus himself, they never saw that as a barrier. It says a couple of things. One, don't use it as an excuse. What are you doing to share the good news? Would be Jesus, I think, direct answer to you. And to tell people winsomely about what God did for them. And number two, I think it also indicates, maybe more subtly or more tacitly, is that this isn't problematic for God. God's not sitting there with this idea of going, it doesn't seem to be panic driven for God. The way it turns to be panic driven for Christians, where we got to get out there and tell people right away. Otherwise, oh no, they're going to burn in hell. They're going to be lost forever. Well, okay, I don't want to underestimate an urgency to some of those lines of thinking there, but that's not the spirit by which they're going out. They're going out with the joy of what God is doing in their life, not with this desperate fear that we got to save them back before God strikes them down because they haven't heard. Romans chapter 1 is a fascinating passage of the Bible that seems to speak against what I would call the innocent person who never heard that gets unjustly judged. I mean, Romans 1 has no toleration for that line of thought going, wait a minute. We're setting up a false hypothetical here. So look, God is big, God is vast, and God has the ability and does work indiscriminately in all kinds of amazing ways to bring the knowledge of his truth to people wherever they are. The good news as a Christian is we believe that in Christ we have greater clarity about who God is, and we get to bring a more vivid image to what's already kind of sensed or apparent out there in the landscape. Yeah, great question.
As Christians, we can share the hope of Christ's suffering, death, and resurrection to non-believers. But how does one explain to a Holocaust survivor or from a tyrannical, I don't know what that
to a
word
tyrannical despot like
Despot.
Idi Amin or
Yeah.
Kim Sung or Pol Pot or Putin is on here. Yeah.
So where was God during that horrible ordeal or situation, and now through the nightmares, why they had to suffer and witness such evil? So kind of why does God let evil people do bad things?
Yeah,
that seems to be the
that's what
question.
it's getting to, and I want to kind of address the way that it's worded here, because it says, "How can we share the hope of Christ to non-believer as Christians? We can share the hope, but how does one explain to a Holocaust survivor, or someone from a tyrannical despot, where it was?" I'm curious if this is based in an actual conversation with a Holocaust survivor or someone who's survived terrible, a tyrannical despot, or if it's a purely hypothetical conjuration, if you will, that someone who has grown up in a privileged upper middle class American society is used as an excuse for belief in God. Because I think the answer to that question, while still a valid question, how you answer the question can be very different depending on who it is. If I'm talking to an actual Holocaust survivor versus someone who has never lived in a household that's made less than 6 figures in their life and has gone to, good schools and had a happy family life at home and had a car when they were 6. It's going to be a very different way of approaching the subject. So I think it starts there. It's fascinating when you read the stories of those who have suffered deeply, and you can read the stories, the firsthand accounts of people who did survive the Holocaust, but also people who suffered under, the communist regime of Stalin or whatever flavor it might have been of the month or year, and many others around the world. Isn't it striking that there's 2 equal and opposite reactions to suffering evil? Some people come to greater faith in God, and some people turn in anger or disillusionment from God. Evil does not seem to be a defining moment by which it determines whether someone comes to God or not. It seems to be determined by something else. And I almost think that the hypothetical conversation has to start there rather than with the problem of evil. Because if evil were really a problem, I think we would see universally or near universally people who experience evil to the proportion that they experience evil turning from God. And that is not what you witness. So what I would say is just talk to the people. Talk to the people on both sides. Talk to the people who have turned from God and talk to the people who have turned towards God and hear it from the people who have actually suffered evil and take it out of the hypothetical debate. And I think we'll learn a lot if we read their writings and listen to what they have to say.
Yeah, I saw something recently. I think it was a Tony Robbins movie or documentary or TV episode or something. But he's like a motivational.
Yeah, we know. Yeah, and if you don't know Tony Robbins, just quick Google and boom, you're there.
Netflix, I am not your guru.
Yeah, that's what it was called. Yep, and it was really good. But in that movie, multiple times it talks about how people have had hardships in their life or difficulties in their life or horrible situations or any of those things. That creates the person that they become.
Absolutely.
So in that moment, they're probably not like, I'm going to praise God right now because of this thing. But down the road, as they grow through that, as they learn to process that, as they learn to help other people through similar things, that's when, in general, I feel like you start to see the curse as a blessing in a way. Because that's like his whole thing is like, I would not be doing what I'm doing right now had I not have had a horrible childhood and, terrible parents and abusive people in my life, because I would never have a heart for people who have been through that. So it's like interesting how almost time seems to give you a little bit more perspective on that. Like, I'm guessing there probably weren't people in the middle of the Holocaust who came to faith in that moment, but maybe after the fact, that was something that happened. And obviously that's hypothetical, but.
Or maybe they did. And maybe, so what's their avenue of, okay, look at Idi Amin was mentioned in that, or maybe you just mentioned that.
No, he's actually in the question. Yeah.
So you look at the country of Uganda, where Idi Amin was ruler, dictator, and how brutal he was. Look at that country. I mean, it's primarily a Christian country. Why would that be? Well, because probably they were looking for anybody to save them. And so when you what hope do they have? They have nothing materialistically. They have no food, no water, rarely. They don't have any hope in their government. There's no hope in any jobs. And so
absolute corruption, everything.
Hope? Well, the only place you can go, and so even to this day, still now it's even
and you saw that predominantly with African slave trade, in the United States as well, the deep spiritual Christian life that came out of the slave movement, precisely because God is a God of the oppressed, the poor, and the broken. And to be able to find that level of hope and truth and future in that has led many. I think the problem that I've seen many Christians get into, though, is that because there certainly is, as the Bible will put it, God will work all things for the good of those who love him. And, suffering produces character, and character produces perseverance, and perseverance produces hope. And we can speculate on what good kind of comes out of evil. But sometimes what I find happens is that Christians will then start calling evil good, or soft pedaling evil. Like, well, the Holocaust was used for good by God. Well, he could even take out of the worst thing redemption and good, but it doesn't make it less evil. In fact, God would even call it more evil than I think what we would perceive it to be evil. And that's pretty evil. Or any of these other number of situations. And so within this, it's never to undermine evil. If anyone calls evil evil, it's God. And one of the most compelling reasons for me to even believe in God at the theoretical level is because it allows me to call evil evil and good good. Because if you do not have something transcendent and you do not have God, evil is nothing more than I don't like it.
Mhm.
And I'm sorry, I look at something like the
That's
Holocaust,
just reality.
and that goes beyond just, well, that's not my personal preference. I don't think it should be that way. No, there's something fundamentally wrong with it. It's evil, and God allows it to be evil because he transcends my own, preference or just the happenstance of the universe. Right. Yeah.
Yes, that's a tough question.
Yeah.
but
Yeah. Great
I
question.
didn't know who Idi Amin was.
Idi
So
Amin.
now I know.
Yeah.
Idi
So
Amin.
And given your
President Museveni
connection
took
too
power
with,
from him.
Okay, there you go.
with Uganda. Yeah. Like 3 minutes on Google and your life's going to be changed.
Yeah, definitely.
So did you see this one that popped in? Where in the Bible does it say that we have free will?
I was just gonna ask that, and I think a couple weeks ago we kind of ended the podcast on talking about that idea a little bit of, do you have free will? Do you not? What about this situation? That type of thing. So yeah, I kind of like how it says, like, where does it actually say that, or does it?
I do invite the challenge on this, and please text it in. But I actually don't believe it does. Rather, it is more implicit to the storyline of the Bible and the theology of the Bible. But it has to be nuanced as well, because there are a lot of theologians, including people like Martin Luther, John Calvin, that would argue, one of Luther's most famous works is actually called On the Bondage of the Will, meaning the will is not free, the will is enslaved. And he wrote it against Erasmus, who wrote a work called, On Free Will. And so I think the free will argument gets played a little too freely and loosely by a lot of Christians. I think it's implicitly used to undergird a lot of arguments in Christianity too much. And what I'd encourage you to do is to think of world history in 4 movements as it relates to the freedom of a human will. There is creation before the fall of humanity. There is creation, or let me talk humanity. There's humanity before the fall into sin. There's humanity after the fall into sin, but before the coming of Christ. There's humanity after the coming of Christ and what I would call the Christ event with the outpouring of the Holy Spirit and so on. And there's humanity as it exists or will exist when Christ comes again. And the relative freedom of the will in each of those phases or dispensations, if I can use that language, is actually very different. And I think we tend to think about it as being something more universal. There is a very definitive slavery of our will and motive and freedom to choose that I think humanity has experienced and will continue to exist and experience until Christ comes again. Ways that this has been analogized, it's like an addict, for example. You can say that an alcoholic or a drug addict has free will, and they do to a certain degree. Yet, from a very different perspective, they're very enslaved to something. And we wouldn't look at their will as being completely free. They are controlled, dictated, and driven by something. And I don't want to get into how much, and I don't think we should look at this binarily like in black or white terms, but I think all of our wills are like that in some way. Maybe I'm not addicted to alcohol, but all of our wills are enslaved to some degree, which is all the more reason why we need the Holy Spirit in our life, who brings us to faith, to repentance, to hope, to obedience, and does the transforming work in our life that we can never choose on our own. So, yeah, great question. And one that needs more explanation than the quick, just, we all have free will, so kind of answer.
Yeah,
I think
I've
we
heard
throw
that,
out.
like, you can't have, like, freedom can't exist without rules. Like a complete, more in terms of like a society. Like, America is, we, especially like with 4th of July recently, it's like, oh, we're celebrating freedom and the freedom in America. But you're not free to do anything. There are still rules that your freedom exists within, that allows it to flourish, if you will. So yeah, that free will isn't devoid of any restrictions, if you will.
No. Just like, and even if you're in a pre-legal state, take Adam and Eve. And I know you can argue against the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, but okay, let's not go there, because I think their life was bigger than one rule. You can live in a lawless state and still be free, apparently, to choose certain things or think in certain ways, regardless if there's any law dictating it. I mean, so I think it's even more internal than something put upon you as you better not do that or else, you know?
Yeah.
That was my dad.
You better not do this or else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or remember the classic line, quit your crime before I give you something to cry about.
Brought you into this world, I can take you out.
Yeah. It was good.
There's a lot of
I had rules.
a lot of parents threatening their children.
Didn't follow them very
certain
often,
moments.
but I had rules.
But again, let's kind of resituate what freedom of the will means as something other than God as lawgiver. That's just one piece of the entire expression of reality and humanity and life with God. Why the tendency to always run to God as the one who gives rules and am I free to break it or obey? It just, I don't think God thinks that way.
Mm-hmm.
Fundamentally, how are you free to live? And being free to live doesn't mean I can do everything I want. I physically can't do a lot of things. I can't fly, right? I can't raise myself from the dead. I can't, these are weird examples, but lots of things I can't do, not because it's being imposed on me. It's just the limitations of who I am.
Making me think of a lot of stuff.
Andrew's pondering. All right. We got more coming back
things.
next time.
It's not. What's the old saying? It's not if you win or lose. It's how you play the game. Was a quote from the person who always lost. Right. So
Yeah.
we're given free will. It's probably created by the sinner.
Right.
Hey, you got
Who's
free will.
all too aware of that
That's
free will.
correct.
We got about 3 minutes, Andrew.
Yeah,
All right. What do we
no.
got? Should we do that one?
Yeah,
Let's
let's
do
jump
it.
on this one.
Let's do it. I
We
saw
get
you
a 3-minute
highlight it.
answer to this. Why is God so different in the Old Testament than he is in the New Testament?
I don't think he is. I really don't. And the more that I read the Old Testament, the more I'm convinced of that. I think a lot of us, and I've certainly been guilty of this myself, selectively read the Old Testament, or even worse, don't read the Old Testament, but remember or think we know some stories from the Old Testament and project that on the entire Old Testament, when in reality, it's like 1% of the storyline. Give me Old Testament wrath any day over New Testament wrath. Old Testament wrath is some kind of judgment from God, like the fire and brimstone on Sodom and Gomorrah or something like that, let's say. New Testament judgment from the mouth of Jesus, who everyone says is about love, is hell. Give me the Old Testament wrath any day. Jesus is very clear that he is the God of the Old Testament. And he is the clearest perception and embodiment of who that God is. And so if you want to know who the God of the Old Testament is, you got to look to Jesus. It's this weird testamental divide we make is artificial and arbitrary. It's not how God looks at the universe. It's not how God thinks of himself. We just, for editing's sake, made 2 parts to the book. No, it's one book. It's one story, one revelation, same guy.
I think you can look at it too, like the Old Testament is generally God the Father.
I think that's arguable.
Yeah, arguable. I would say
in the beginning,
totality,
God
it's not
created the
necessarily
heavens
an
and the
account
earth.
of Jesus. Whereas I think generally when people think of the New Testament, they're like, oh, it's the story of Jesus.
Well, sure, and it
So
is the
you're
story of
looking at
Jesus. Yeah.
God,
Yeah.
the son of God, God as the Son. So it's a different person of God. So you will see different aspects and different attributes. But it doesn't mean that God has changed in some
You're
way.
certainly saying the second person of the Trinity in the New Testament blazingly clear.
Yes.
But does that imply that he was not present?
No, Not at all.
In fact, John 1:1, the gospel of Jesus begins with, in the beginning, and I'll just substitute his name in where it says word. In the beginning was Jesus, and Jesus was with God, and Jesus was God. He was with God in the beginning. Through Jesus, all things were made. Without him, nothing was made that has been made. In Jesus is life, and that life is the light of men. I mean, so when it says in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, that would include Jesus.
Yeah.
Verse 2, and the earth was formless and void, and the Spirit of God hovered over the waters of the deep. There's your third person of the Trinity. It's all over the place.
It's true.
Yeah.
So why did he make the earth flat?
Oh man.
Maybe
Because it's hard on my soul, man. It's so sure,
It could fit into the storybooks. You have to be able to draw the whole thing.
I love it. I love it. Well, I think we hit the gamut for today. Again, we want to thank you guys for tuning in. Appreciate the questions that you're asking. Keep on asking. You can text in anytime to 815-314-0363. We will get to your questions as soon as we can. We go live every Wednesday, 12:30 p.m. Central Time, but catch us if you missed us in past episodes. Pop on Spotify, pop on Apple, whatever your podcast provider happens to be. Just search questions you never thought you can ask in church, or join us at fellowshipoffaith.org. Go to the FOF Plus page. You can catch us there, or even catch our Sunday services live on Sunday mornings at 10 a.m. Hey, God bless you guys, and we'll catch you next time. Take care.
Questions you never thought you'd have. Questions you never